The NFL just made a big statement about the Denver Broncos, and it all revolves around Bo Nix and the belief Sean Payton has in his team. The league's schedule reveals something important. They're buying into the Broncos' future. Just 2 seasons ago, Denver was barely visible on the national stage with only 2 primetime games. Now, the Broncos have 5 nationally televised matchups, plus an international game against the Jets. That's a major upgrade, and there's more. The final game of the season against the Chargers is still listed as TBD, which likely means the league is keeping it open to flex into primetime if playoff implications are on the line. That's a massive shift in how the Broncos are being viewed, not just by fans, but by the NFL itself. Bo Nix, once doubted by analysts and fans alike, is suddenly front and center. All the early criticism, from calling him a reach to questioning Payton's decision-making, is starting to fade as confidence in this team grows. According to Mike Cleese, NFL VP of Broadcasting Howard Katz confirmed that Sean Payton's belief in Bo Nix played a big part in the team's spotlight on the schedule. If Payton's that confident in his quarterback, the league is listening. Last year, there was reason for caution, but not anymore. This isn't about lowering expectations or building slowly. It's clear Payton sees something special in this group, and particularly in Bo Nix. There's no talk of a sophomore slump, and why should there be? Yes, second-year struggles are real. We've seen it before with players like RG3, Colin Kaepernick, and even Drew Lock. But Nix's trajectory last season was different. Aside from a couple of tough early matchups, including one against Pittsburgh's red-hot defense and another on the road in Seattle, one of the toughest environments in the league, Nix showed poise and progress. This isn't a team sneaking under the radar anymore. The NFL's betting big on Denver. Now it's up to the Broncos and Bo Nix to prove them right. Bo Nix didn't just survive his rookie season. He got noticeably better as the year went on. Early on, there were rough moments. His debut featured a 47 passer rating, followed by a 55 in Week 2. But from that point forward, it was steady progress. By the end of the season, the improvement was obvious. Yes, his final game came against some backups, but he still threw 4 touchdowns against the Chiefs. That's not nothing. Against Cincinnati, a team fighting for a playoff spot, he delivered 3 touchdowns and only 1 interception. In a Thursday night game against the Chargers, on the road and on a short week, he outperformed Justin Herbert with 2 touchdowns and no picks. The key takeaway? Defenses didn't figure him out. In fact, he improved as the season went on, which is the exact opposite of what typically leads to a sophomore slump. Even in a tough road environment like Buffalo, with drop passes and rough weather, he posted a 93 passer rating. That's impressive for any rookie, especially one dealing with inconsistent help from his receiving core. Analysts like Cameron Parker have noted that both Bo Nix and his fellow rookies likely won't face the classic second-year dip. Why? There's already plenty of film on them, and rather than regressing, they actually improved over time. Plus, being older and more mature helps smooth out the learning curve. Looking ahead to this season, there's another wrinkle worth watching: rest days. A graphic released recently highlights each team's net rest advantage or disadvantage across the year. It calculates how many extra days of rest you have compared to your opponent each week, something that can quietly shape outcomes. Denver catches a break compared to last season. For example, the Broncos and Commanders both come off their bye week before facing each other, keeping things even. Contrast that with last year when teams like the 49ers had to face multiple opponents fresh off byes, a setup that had Kyle Shanahan publicly frustrated. While Denver still has the second worst rest differential in the AFC West, it's manageable. The Raiders, for example, have a much tougher schedule in terms of rest days. That could work in Denver's favor, especially with the Raiders' matchup coming later in the season, when accumulated fatigue could take its toll. One spot to watch: a potentially tricky game against the Giants. Denver returns from their international game in London, while New York is coming off a Thursday night matchup, meaning they'll have extra rest. No team from the West Coast has handled that kind of turnaround without a bye, so that game could sneak up on people. There is one notable challenge on the schedule: a game where the Broncos will face a 3-day rest disadvantage. It's not ideal, but considering the opponent, it could have been worse. Another matchup to watch: the Broncos will take on the Chiefs, who will have 4 extra days of rest heading into that game. Now, playing Andy Reid after a bye is always tough. He's historically excellent in those situations, But the Broncos aren't going in completely cold. They'll be coming off a mini bye themselves after playing the Raiders earlier in the week, which helps balance things out a bit. And then there's Week 18, potentially the most important game of the year. If that matchup against the Chargers decides a playoff spot or even the AFC West title, Denver will have a big edge, 3 extra days of rest. Combine that with the altitude factor in Denver, and it could be a game-changing advantage. Overall, the schedule couldn't have been better timed. Head coach Sean Payton has already said he's thrilled about how it shaped up, and he's just as excited about Bo Nix, who continues to defy expectations. Think back to last year. No one predicted Bo Nix would outperform Caleb Williams, and yet here we are. It's becoming clear why. The Broncos have something rare, a unified organization. From ownership to coaching to quarterback, everyone is on the same page. That chemistry matters. Compare that to what's been happening in Chicago. Reports suggested Caleb Williams didn't want to be drafted by the Bears. That kind of disconnect can derail a team before the season even begins. Williams reportedly watched film on his own and didn't have much guidance. A risky situation for a rookie quarterback. That's not the case in Denver. Bo Nix has already been watching film with Sean Payton this offseason. New players like R.J. Harvey have spoken highly about their meetings with Payton. Sitting down, breaking down tape, talking football. That kind of mentorship and preparation is crucial for a young quarterback. It shows just how aligned this team is behind the scenes. The Broncos have built a strong foundation, a head coach and quarterback who are locked in, learning together and pushing each other. That kind of partnership is rare, and it's exactly what Denver needs to turn the corner. There's a lot to like about the 2025 schedule. The only real downside is that one stretch with a rest disadvantage. Outside of that, the Broncos are in a prime position to compete. There are just a couple of drawbacks on the schedule. One is that the Broncos will face the Chiefs following Kansas City's bye week. Always a challenge given how well coached that team is coming off extra rest. On top of that, Denver won't get a bye after the international game in London, which is uncommon and could present some fatigue-related challenges. But beyond those two details, the start of this season looks incredibly promising. Right out of the gate, Denver's rookie quarterback will be tested against one of the league's top-ranked defenses, a huge opportunity to make a statement early, and there are other matchups with serious upside. The Colts still have uncertainty at quarterback, and the Broncos already beat them last season with a rookie under center. Since then, Denver has only improved. Now, here's one of the biggest reasons to be optimistic. Denver features the best defensive player in the NFL, and that's not just fan talk. The league recognized Pat Surtain II as one of the top defenders in football last season. That kind of shutdown talent changes the equation for opposing offenses. Take a look at the Broncos' schedule and matchups this year. Pro Football Focus released a list of notable wide receiver matchups, and many of the teams facing Denver don't even have a receiver talented enough to be included. That speaks volumes about the kind of dominance Surtain brings to the table. In fact, one reason the Chargers performed better in their first meeting last season was because Surtain exited on the first snap with a concussion. With a healthy Surtain locking down WR1s and Jaquan McMillian, likely the intended Jade Barron, able to cover the slot, this secondary is built to frustrate and neutralize. Matchups like Jamar Chase on Monday Night Football are going to be must-see games. And when you consider how many teams rely on their top receiver to carry the offense, Denver essentially forces them into Plan B because Surtain is erasing Plan A. One downside on the calendar is the timing of the games against the Chiefs. Wide receiver Rashee Rice is expected to serve a suspension early in the season, so he'll likely be available again when Denver finally faces Kansas City. Still, even with Rice back, the Broncos' secondary should be ready. Bottom line, there's a real sense of hope and belief in Denver this season. The roster is stronger, the coaching staff is unified, and the quarterback situation, while young, is showing serious promise. Which game are you most excited for this season? There's a lot to look forward to, and the energy around this team feels different. Broncos fans finally have reason to believe, and the schedule only adds to that optimism.